Welcome everyone to talk this evening. I'm so happy that you made time to engage with us on this topic. I think this will be the longest topic or title that I've ever created, but I found that interesting because it captures the essence of the talk. So, the reason behind UK consumers' decision to support or reject reduction in food choice, which should be in favor of healthy diet from sustainable food systems, it's a part of a bigger work that tried or attempted to model consumers' willingness to reduce food choice. But for the sake of time, to be able to deal with the section well, I decided that the aspect about what they voted for in terms of supporting or rejecting any idea of reducing food choice, I found that fascinating. So I thought that it would be worth looking at this within this talk, and maybe within follow-up talks, we may be able to consider other issues. So, in terms of the talk, I will be giving a bit of a background, both from research and also from practitioners' point of view. Then look at the reasons, as has been outlined as the main purpose of this discussion. And then also briefly, I will try and cover aspects of food policy implications and where I see to move this project or this research in the future. The issue of providing society with healthy diets is something that, in terms of the discussion, it's been overflowed. A lot has been said. And as the days roll on, we do acknowledge that it is an immediate challenge. But I ask myself that should government be allowed to reduce consumer food choice through legislation? I must say that I have nursed this idea for quite some time, and my thinking has always been on the fact that it appears that it shouldn't be a difficult thing for government to decide to provide exclusive healthy foods from sustainable food systems. After all, if we turn out to have very healthy population, then it would have a positive knock-on effect in terms of the economics on the health of the people. Productivity based on the workforce is highly to go up. Again, the government or society would gain in terms of reduced health budget and so many other advantages. But the question is, why haven't we taken such a step? In terms of the research build up to this talk or this research, it's clear that food marketing and food supply chain researchers have taken time to look at the whole area of sustainable food systems over the years. There's been three key barriers in the past that really stood out in most of the academic work that was done, that related to the fact that there was less availability in terms of sustainable alternatives, healthy alternatives, less variety. And also, there was a talk about the fact that even if we had them available, they were not in the right varieties. So basically, going for healthy option may be choosing for the boring menu. But over a decade and more, it's become quite clear, especially with the mainstreaming that has taken place, in a case where most supermarkets seem to have adopted sustainable options, it became quite clear that these challenges are not as pertinent as they were seen about 2 decades ago. But the problem has persisted in terms of the market share for healthy diet and sustainable alternatives because they lag way behind conventional alternatives. So there's still an issue. And I must say that my colleagues in the area of food, consumer research, and sustainable and supply chain, they haven't really stayed back. They have really worked hard So there have been some attempts at looking at the challenge that is posed by attitude behavior gap in a way to say that, yes, most surveys in the past have shown, especially those based on claimed behavior or reported behavior, has shown that people really express positive attitude or willingness to buy healthy options or sustainable options. But in actual fact, this thought does not reflect in choices. Again, going forward, there's also been the emergence of the green nudges studies where consumers, in a way, being cajoled could be through embedding guilt-imposed messages across some of these promotions that we see across, in a way to urge consumers that, yes, what we express should be seen in our choices. But as we speak, the research still indicates that consumers do not purchase ample amounts. So the question is as to why has this persisted? And there's so many reasons that have been adduced there. But one question that still sticks out in my mind is whether it may be time for us to consider food choice editing, which to some sounds like causing an economic war. Is it time for overt paternalism, where we indicate that we need to make a choice via legislation for the general good of people that in a way are not making the right decision for their own good? So that is a kind of a background that has involved this step to study or to find out what UK consumers think or say about any proposal to indicate that the choices we have in terms of food could be limited in favor of healthy diet and healthy diet that are coming from sustainable food systems. And here, for the work that was done, emphasis on healthy diet from sustainable food systems was laid on the three attributes, i.e. the naturalness, ethical nature, and then health-related attribute of sustainable foods. So it was, like I said, part of a big work to model consumer willingness to reduce food choice, which is another section of this work. But for the particular question that I'm addressing in this talk, it was basically, should government be allowed to take such a step? So as part of the survey, this was a web-based nationwide survey that had representation across age and gender. And then participants were also screened to the people responsible for purchases of household foods in terms of sustainable foods within the previous 3 months. Now, interestingly, this is what came out in terms of what people preferred by way of their decision. So, unfortunately, the vote did not go in favor of people who agreed that government be allowed. So if you look at a figure out there, we are looking at 44.6%, so less than 50%, were the view that yes, we should encourage that food choice reduction intervention will be relevant or it's time for such an action. But through the thematic analysis, we're able to tease out the key reasons that they adduce in support of their position. So as you can see up there, we're looking at key ones like food industry is notorious for selling unhealthy foods. So that could be coming from someone who is somehow tired about what food industry is offering. But I think there's more to that. There's also the need to keep the price of sustainable foods down, which has been one of the persistent challenges when it comes to sustainable and healthy choice. Government should regulate. That is to say that there's no need for even this question. Government should carry on and do what's right to society. And then there's also the element about food sold should be whole in terms of the naturalness. Others also of the view that retailers should produce more healthy foods as obesity is a problem, which is also a recurring problem, which really necessitates some of these discussions and questions. Healthy food is good, that's the obvious. Government's obligation, so that confirms government should legislate. And then they talk about the GMO. I may be visiting this as I go along in terms of the comparative. So we'll look at those who said, no, it's not yet time, or we don't agree. So that really represented a majority who disagreed, 55.4%. And these were of the view that really it should be about choice, as we know, and choice is choice, and it's sacrosanct. Freedom of choice should be held. Others also made a point that yes, it's an individual decision. It shouldn't be imposed on us through any legislation. We had some also coming up with themes such as producers should be encouraged to develop sustainable products. The need for education, which I find very interesting because when you go through the food marketing literature, especially when it comes to sustainable options, lack of awareness featured in addition to some of the challenges that were earlier found, that when people get more educated, they may be more receptive to healthy choice and options. But the question still stays that as to whether there may be cases where people may prefer healthy choice, but well educated about it, but may not have the means to purchase. Consumers have power, which also confirms or reconfirms or reaffirms the fact that choices should not be played with. Consumers should be made to fund health conditions that develop from unhealthy food choices. So basically, this is to say that yes, there should be responsibility to the extent that when people realize what within the literature, we found some models on awareness of consequence. The awareness of consequence is likely to bring about behavior change. But I think this is yet to be seen in terms of sustainable choices. There are some studies that have been done about recycling that points in this direction. There will be the need for less competition, which are the bigger marketing issues that needs to be addressed. There's been a question on the sample size, and I just want to go to the next slide to just indicate that. So we had, as you can see there, those were 712, and then we had those against that were 886 altogether. Now, having looked at this, I was also very interested to interrogate the gender dynamics because up until this time, the well-educated professional female has always featured highly in any survey or in poll that relates to preference for sustainable options. So I was interested to see what the dynamics would look like. So over here, I was more interested in comparing the male yes there in terms of the percentages against the female yes. So as we could see there, we have more, in terms of percentages, we have more of the females, not that much, saying yes. And then when it came to the no's as well, we had a bit more of the males saying no compared to the females. I mean, we can't really read much into this because these are very simplistic statistics in terms of descriptives, but it really feeds into the existing ideas about where gender dynamics come in when it comes to preference for sustainability. Now, I just summed this up just to give us, I know this is not quite legible, but it's just to give an indication. These are just repeating the themes that were highlighted in terms of the prevalence of those themes across. So I'm not making much sense about this, but just to give an indication that for those themes that really came up very high, they were also distributed in certain categories. And I did a similar thing just as a way of representation for those that said that they disagree with government being given the right for such a legislation. Having looked at this and then observed the differences across and the teams that really scored high, the question then becomes, what are some of the possible implications? I must say that there's a need to do more work to really make much sense in terms of direct implications. And this, supplemented with the modeling, which has been done on willingness to reduce food choice, also gives a broader kind of a wider perspective for us to be able to make a judgment. But I think that just on the basis of simple majority decision, it's quite clear that UK consumers are not ready yet for kind of openly discussed food choice editing in terms of overt paternalism. I mean, I say this because in some cases, within other sectors, paternalism or choices have been reduced. And a typical example was the introduction of the contactless bank card, which came through seamlessly. And it appears that the exceptional times we live in this time, in a way, has confirmed or given a stamp of approval that it was good that step was taken. But there wasn't much of resistance because it wasn't something that was openly discussed. The banks, under that circumstance, I think decided that they knew what was good for consumers or for customers, despite some of the challenges that we know are associated with the use of contactless bank cards. So obviously, food consumers are not ready as far as food choice reduction is concerned in favor of any legislation. But I also see that comparing the percentages, it also appears that there may be room for us to also now begin the discussion, because further research into the attributes of people who are for and who are against may also throw up different dynamics in terms of unique attributes. It could be that those who say they are against may be more of people who are opinion formers, or otherwise, it could also swing to the other side. So behind these headline figures, further studies will be very useful to be able to highlight any prospect for us to be moving in that direction. So I envisage that going forward, I'll be looking forward to collaborate and then expand this work to cover all other relevant stakeholders along the entire food chain, and then also seek opinions of other policy formulators and implementers. So clearly, it's very simple but straightforward question that was posed, and it's coming out quite in an interesting manner that we don't have people being straight away in agreement that yes, depending on where we are now within the full supply chain systems, because the debate has always been that industries seem to be saying in one way that yes, we may be willing or ready, but it has to also be led by consumers. And based on our understanding about any policy and the way it's implemented, if those that are going to be affected by the policy are not ready, then we may as well not even go there. But I think that clearly the times that we live in and the exceptional challenges posed to health in terms of where poor diet or poor nutrition have a knock-on effect on people's immunity levels, it may appear to me that yes, the discussion around a food system that could enhance or provide exclusively healthy diet for everyone, starting from the UK as an example, could be something, it's a topic that I think that the interest in it will grow as we go along. And I hope that going forward, we may be able to have further discussion to see what will serve the best interest of consumers, the best interest of the food industry, and then society at large.